This week's parsha, Parshas Tisa. So one of the major events in Tisa, so there are a couple of events that go on. The beginning, really we start and God commands the counting. Tisas Rosh Bnei Yisrael. If you want to turn, it's page 484, page 485, whether you prefer the Hebrew or the English. And so God tells Moshe to take a census. And in order to do that, he tells you're not supposed to count Jewish people. We know we're not supposed to count each other. So instead of counting the people, Moshe was commanded to collect 1/2 shekel, a chatzi shekel, from each individual. Okay? And you collect the chatzi shekel, and that will, in turn, then you count those up, and whatever that number is, that's how many people there are. That's how you take the census. Okay? Pretty straightforward. So God tells Moshe to use a 1/2 shekel. And the Gemara brings down, Rashi quotes this also, says that Moshe didn't understand. He didn't get it. He didn't know what this 1/2 shekel was. So God shows him a coin of fire. A 1/2 shekel made out of fire, much like God did 2 weeks ago in Parshas Truma, where God commands Moshe to build the menorah, to build the candelabra. And Moshe again says, I don't get it. And God shows him a candelabra of fire, and then Moshe is able to use the designs he sees in the fire to make the menorah. Good. So here, it's the same thing. God says, take a machatzis shekel, take a 1/2 shekel, make everybody give one of these, and that's how you'll count the people. And then the Gemara says that God had to show Moshe a 1/2 shekel of fire. And we should all be asking ourselves, what? Moshe didn't know what a coin looked like? Did Moshe really not know what a 1/2 shekel coin looks like? Ask any child in Israel, and they know what a 1/2 shekel coin looks like. Right? You pull out from your pocket the currency, and you know what it is. Moshe surely knew what a 1/2 shekel coin was. So what's going on? What is this 1/2 shekel of fire? Any thoughts?
Amen.
Anybody?
First of all, is there anywhere just describing the reason why it's not 1 full shekel and 1/2?
So there are certain answers on that, yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. I can say, yeah,
okay.
we'll come back to that in a minute. But why? What does this mean that Moshe didn't get it? Right? Why did God have to show him a fiery coin? So let's start and first understand that Moshe did understand what the coin was. Okay, it wasn't that Moshe didn't know what a 1/2 shekel coin looked like. He knew what a 1/2 shekel coin was. Moshe was bothered. Why a 1/2 shekel coin? Why the ultimate symbol of materialism would be used to count the Jewish people. Right? Moshe, first of all, had perfected himself to an extremely high spiritual level, almost to the point of not needing his physical body anymore. That's right, the 40 days up on the mountain. And he spends 40 days there, he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink, he doesn't sleep. Human beings can't do this. Moshe was on a higher level. Okay? So Moshe, on his spiritual level, didn't understand why it should be money that's used to count the people. Right? I understand it had to be something physical because you can't count people's heads. Right? I can't go around the room and count heads.
Why?
It's about ayin hara. Okay, the evil eye. Without getting into that whole idea. Probably could have just prepared on that. That would have taken us the full share. Right? But either way, so you can't count the people. So how does it give something else? Have everybody, hand in a piece of paper. Right? Everybody in the desert should have handed a piece of paper, or a shoe, or, some article of clothing, or a piece of food, or something else. And Moshe would count that. Why did it have to be money?
Use it for something or another.
Okay, to use it. So we know they took the money that was donated and they used it for the Mishkan. Good. But this is what Moshe was bothered by. What Moshe didn't understand is, why would God ask the Jewish people to give in, to submit the ultimate symbol of physical? Money. Money is really the ultimate symbol of physical. It doesn't get more than that. It doesn't get more material than money. So this is what Moshe was bothered by. Moshe had a hard time understanding why money. So what does God do? He shows him a coin of fire. Why a coin of fire? How does that help? Why does that solve the problem? Feel free to just shout anything out.
Symbolizes the fact that if you get too attached to material things, they're all going to burn and disappear.
You're all going to burn. Okay. nice, homiletic, right? It's definitely drash. I like it. This is what we do here, right? Okay. I haven't seen that anywhere, but perhaps.
It can be consumed.
Meaning the materialism itself will be consumed. Don't get too caught up or you'll lose that. Good. I like that too. Okay? I want to suggest two things in this. One, fire is the only substance in the world that you can take from it without diminishing it.
With a what?
Without diminishing it.
Oh.
Fire is the only physical object, right, that you can take from it without diminishing it. And if I want to give you food, I now have less food. If I give you an article of clothing, I now have less clothing. If I give you money, I now have less money. If I have a candle that's lit, and you bring over a wick and touch it to my candle, we now have two candles. And mine is not any less than it was before. So that's part of the message that God is showing Moshe. Right? You need to take the money, you need to share it. The idea here is to take the physical, and this ties into my second idea, this is from Rav Uziel Malevsky of Toronto, right? To take the coin, to take the physical and make it spiritual. Fire, very often in Jewish thought, represents spirituality. Okay? We hear this, a guy's got a certain fire burning in him, right? Okay? With a bren in the Yiddish, right? So you can take the physical, you can take your coin, the ultimate sign of materialism, and you can make it into what? A coin of fire. You can take the physical and you can make it spiritual. You can do a mitzvah, you do tzedakah. You give it to another person. You can take it and you can donate it to the Mishkan, to the Beit HaMikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can do a mitzvah with it. And Moshe was so bothered, why in the world would I take physical and give that to God? And God says, I'll show you a coin of fire. I'm going to show you that a coin, what you think is the ultimate symbol of physical, can be a symbol of spiritual. And he takes the coin of fire, and he shows him, this is what you should do. Now, why a half shekel? So I saw in Medrash Tanchuma, he gives three answers, I only remember two. The half shekel, even though it's earlier in the PARSHA, the half shekel was to be mechaper, was an atonement for the chet ha'egel. Okay, this is what the Midrash says. That the half shekel was to atone for the sin of the chet ha'egel of the golden calf. Okay, and when did they sin with the golden calf? So the Gemara makes a drasha. It says kibo sheish Moshe, that Moshe delayed, but bet shin shin sounds also like bishesh, at 6 hours. Now we know the day starts in the morning. 6 hours into the day, you're at midday. You're at the halfway point, and therefore a half a shekel. Okay. I also saw. He says also one of the other opinions brought down is the half shekel is 10 gera. Right? 1 shekel is worth esrim gera. A gera is another currency. Okay. So the same way that a dollar is 4 quarters, a shekel is 20 gera. A half shekel is therefore 10 gera. And because the Jewish people, when they sinned with all 10 of the Aseres Hadibros, therefore bring 10 gera to atone for the Aseres Hadibros that were violated. And that's the third one, that again the 10 gera, because half a shekel is 10 gera, to atone for the sale of Yosef. Yosef was sold by 10 brothers, because there were 12 of them. Yosef was being sold, so obviously he wasn't part of it, and Binyamin wasn't there, so he wasn't part of it either. So 10 brothers sold Yosef, and therefore the Esrim Gera cut in half, the Machatzis of Esrim Gera, the Eser Gera, the 10 Gera value of the half shekel should be an atonement for that. So this is an idea brought in the Tanchuma to answer why the half shekel. Okay, but that's why the coin of fire. To take a coin, to take physical, make it spiritual like fire. Okay, so that's one idea. Now we touched on just now the chet ha'egel. Oh, so just one cute idea. This is a nice one. Look into the Hebrew side. Right? I'm not sure how good everybody's Hebrew is. Okay, mine's not all that great either. But let's look at the Hebrew side for a minute.
On the right side.
The right side, yes, the right side of the page. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here they are.
All right, the right side of the page. God says to Moshe, Ki Tisa rosh bnei Israel, when you take a census of the children of Israel, it's good to their numbers. V'nasenu, right? V'nasnu. Every man shall give. Now look at that word in the Hebrew. It's a palindrome. right? It's like mom, M-O-M, it reads both ways, okay? This is a palindrome. Vav, nun, taf, nun, vav. So you can read it backwards. It's the third word on the second line of the Hebrew. And also, if you look at the cantillation notes, if you look at the trup, it's a kadma v'azla, okay? Don't worry about that. But it's two sort of upward-facing things, but they're facing each other. So the idea that a lot of people like to say on this is that when you give, you're also taking. Sometimes when you take, you're giving. The give and take really is, it's a partnership. So this is talking about giving tzedakah. When you give the Esrim Gera to the Mishkan, so when you give, it will be given to you as well. V'nasnu, you give, and then it will be given back to you. And we know actually, Chazal tell us, the rabbis tell us, that tzedakah is the only mitzvah that you can sort of, as it were, demand of God to see reward from. God promises us, if you give the maestros, if you give 10%, if you give the tithe to tzedakah like you're supposed to, you will be paid back tenfold, meaning 100-fold. Okay? So this is this idea of the v'nasnu. The word reads both ways. The cantillation notes go this way and then that way, because it's showing you the idea that tzedakah goes both ways. If you give it, it will be given to you as well. God will pay you back. Okay? Just a cute idea I thought on the Machatzis HaShekel. Good. So now, the chet of the golden calf. Right?
Before we get to that, may I interrupt for a
second?
second?
Please.
When he says you shall give half a shekel for every man, does he mean every person or just men only and not women?
I don't remember. This census, I think, was actually everybody.
So that included women and children?
I think so. I honestly...
The word man is included in woman, so it might be included.
Right.
You say, if you say Rosh means a head.
Mm-hmm.
Means
So not
I think
everyone can
And
be.
when they say Yishes Rehu, they always talk, it's all...
Yeah. I believe this is a full count, but I'm not 100%. I could be mistaken. Because generally the other times it says ages. Right here it doesn't. No, it does. No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's 20 to 60. No. It's the males.
Males only?
It's the males. Yeah, like most of them.
Okay.
I was mistaken. Yeah, I think so. I'm looking here quickly on the notes
Where are you?
to check.
Where are
but,
you looking?
The notes on the bottom.
Down
yeah.
here. Oh. I thought Rashi says nothing on it.
Rashi doesn't say anything.
No.
Yeah, I generally we assume, especially in the counts that start at 20 years. Yeah, it's only the men. It's the men from 20 years and up. This is, I guess they figured each man was probably married, and they took an approximate of the kids.
Or one.
I don't know.
They're too precious to count.
Correct. Very good. Thank you. I especially like that. All right. All right. So the Chet HaEgel.
That's a good one.
All right. The Chet HaEgel, which, by the way, who did not sin? Who did not partake of the Chet HaEgel?
The women.
The women. Okay. Good. So you guys weren't counted. And the Levium. Correct. You guys weren't counted, but you didn't sin.
Well, there are a very small minority of people who actually sin.
That's also
And
true.
wasn't it from the Arab Rav anyway?
It was mostly Arab Rav, but certainly parts of the mainstream Jews participated as well. Yeah.
But the idea is that if part of us sin, everybody sins?
To an extent, I mean, not everybody necessarily sinned. It was just like a huge...
No, but everybody's responsible.
Everybody's responsible. Everybody's responsible for each other, right? We know, Kol Yisrael Chavirim. Arevim Zelazeh, right? Everybody is responsible, one for the next.
There was a
Not only that, but there were a lot of non-Jews in that particular...
Correct. So that's what Sandra said, that, it was a lot of the Erev Rav, those who sort of just joined up and never really bought in. That, correct. That's it. But it was mainstream also.
There was the plague.
The plague came afterwards, correct.
Well, those people who sinned probably perished in the plague. And there was a
correct. Okay. So, one idea, one just quick thought. We often in life, we like to say, things like the devil made me do it, right? I had no choice. It was under duress. One of the al-chaitz, I know we're about 7 months out from it, but having just passed Purim and Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim, so I figure it's okay, right? So one of the al-chaitz that we say is, I just blanked. But one of the ones we say is under duress, right? Willingly and under duress. Ba'onas of ratzon, right? Ba'onas. Right? So we clap al-chait and say, God, I'm sorry for the things I did, but honest when I had no choice. What does that mean? Right? If you really had no choice, what are you al-chaiting? I know I just made a verb out of that. What are you staying in al-chait for? Right? What is that? You still did it, but you're totally not liable. You're not liable for your actions at that point. You're not responsible. You're not punishable.
Probably a thin line.
What are you doing an al-chid for? So what a lot of say, though, it's similar to that. What a lot of people say is that it's a fake onus. Meaning, it's where I say it's an onus. God, I didn't have a choice. I had to speak Lashon Hara. It was too good a rumor. Right? That's the kind of thing we say onus about.
Yeah.
If it's a real onus, you're okay. If it's a fake onus, you're not. And I think Aaron teaches us this lesson this week. Right? What happens? The people come to Aaron and they say, God, Moshe's not coming back. We need a new leader. And Aaron says, no, let's wait. He'll be back soon. And they say, no, let's do it. And then it says, Vayar Aaron, that Aaron saw. So Rashi says, what did Aaron see? He saw Hur, his nephew, the son of Miriam, stood up against the Jews and said, this is wrong, idolatry, wait for Moshe, you guys are counting wrong. And he killed him. They killed Hur. So Aaron sees this, and now he's fearing for his life. Now he's actually under duress. He has no choice. So what does he do? He concocts this plan of, well, guys, go ask your wives and the children for their jewelry. And we all know women are not prone to giving up their jewelry. Not for this, at least, right? So the men end up, they take their own jewelry and give that in, and fine. Okay? But Aaron really tries everything he can. Aaron does his best job at not performing this tape. And finally, there's nothing he could do. He's going to be killed. And then he concocts a plan anyway to delay it further. That's duress. Like, that's really when you're doing something ba'ones. When we say ba'ones, most of the time, it's not really ones. You're not really under duress. It's psychological. We make it out that, I didn't have a choice and I had to and this and that. But Aaron was under duress. Right? Let's not overlook that fact. Good. So then, they do the thing, they do the Egel. Moshe's up on the mountain, getting the luchos from Hashem. You can turn if you wanna follow along. So it's on, we could sort of start the bottom of 496, 497. Okay? So Moshe is up at the top of the mountain, and the people sin. People are sinning as he's there. And Moshe starts to come down. Moshe and Yeshua start to come down the mountain. And Hashem reconsidered, good. Moses turned and descended from the mountain with the two tablets of the testimony in hand, tablets inscribed on both sides. The tablets were God's handiwork, turned to 499. So they are on their way down. That was a brief recap. They get the tablets, and Moses is coming down the mountain with Yoshua. Okay? And they come down, and what happens? Vayishma Yehoshua, follow whichever side you prefer. Vayishma Yehoshua as kol ha'am b're'o. Yoshua heard the people shouting.
Which pasuk again?
We are now in pasuk Yud Zayin, 17.
Okay.
498, 499. I'd actually prefer you not follow with 499 because that's going to spoil what I'm going to say.
No.
Vayishma Yoshua. Yoshua hears as kol ha'am b're'o, the top of 498 or 499. 17 Yud Zayin. Yoshua hears the sounds of the people. Vayomer Moshe, and he says to Moshe, kol melchama b'machaneh. It sounds like there's a war going on. Vayomer, and Moshe responds, in kol anos gevura, it is not the sound of people crying out in victory. Ve'in kol anos chalusha, it is not the sound of people crying out in defeat. Kol anos anochi shamea, it is a kol anos. Now if you look at the English, distress. So it says a sound of distress do I hear. Okay? Now Art Scroll generally follows Rashi's interpretation. Whenever there are ambiguous words in a pasuk, and it's unclear what they're supposed to mean, the Art Scroll will follow Rashi. So if you look carefully, if you look quickly at Rashi, if anybody wants to follow along, where Moshe says it's not the sound of victory, it's not the sound of people whooping and cheering and yelling, victory, we won. And when he says it's not the sound of defeat, Moshe says to Yeshua, it's not the sound of people saying, run, flee for your lives, run away because we're conquered. It's not those sounds. What is the sound? Meaning, Yeshua, it's not the sound of a war. What is the sound? Kol anos, kol charufin v'gedufin. It is the sound of blasphemy. Because they're worshipping the idol. They're worshipping the Egel. It is the sound of blasphemy. Ham'anin es nefesh shom'an. Which distresses the soul of the listener. So what does Moshe say to Yeshua? Yeshua says it sounds like there's a war going on. And Moshe says there is not a war going on. Because the sounds you're hearing are not sounds of victory and they're not sounds of defeat.
I mean, he's saying facetiously, he would know if a war was going on. Maybe Joshua, no.
No.
No, he wasn't. He was on the mountain.
They were on the top of the
halfway
mountain.
up the
They're on the
mountain.
mountain. They're all the way out there.
Yeah.
They can't see that far. You can hear that far.
They hear it, but
I
it's-
see.
Right? They
No,
see
they
just a
didn't.
large mass of people. They don't know what's
They
going
didn't.
on. And they hear the sounds. And so Moshe says, it's not a war. It's not victory. It's not defeat. Kol anos, it's the sound of distress. And he says, it's the sound of distress. What's the sound of distress? It's my distress, says Moshe. It's distress for me. Why? Because the Jewish people, my flock, are sinning. They're blaspheming. They are worshiping idols. Right? This is what Moshe says. The Sephorno says something very similar. He says also, the Sephorno is not in our Chumash, but the Sephorno says something very similar. Sephorno says it's the sound. Oh, it's quoted in the bottom there. Okay, so the Sephorno says something similar. He says that it was the rejoicing that disturbed Moshe, right? Because they weren't just worshiping the idol; they were dancing, they were singing, they were playing music, they had a feast, right? It was how happy they were with their idol, with their newfound freedom, right? Moshe's gone, right? The king is dead, right? Not Elvis, right? The king is dead, we're free. There's no more Moshe on our backs. We can do what we want. Let's create a cow, let's have a new idol, a new god, whatever. And now we're free, and they're rejoicing in that. They're happy, they're taking pleasure in this. And this is what pained Moshe. This is what had distressed him so much. This is what really bothered him about what was going on. Okay? So that's Rashi. That's the Sephorno.
That's Rashi's interpretation.
That's Rashi's interpretation. The Ramban says something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I told you that the Art Scroll translation generally follows Rashi. And I don't have it with me, so you'll have to trust me or look at home. But the Art Scroll Ramban, Art Scroll put out another set after the Stone, where they've translated the Ramban. And so they also have the English Chumash there, obviously. Okay? The English in there will follow the Ramban in an ambiguous phrase, right? In general, Art Scroll follows Rashi, but it would seem in the Ramban edition of Chumash, and where they only bring the Ramban commentary and put it in English, presumably the English translation will follow the Ramban. So there they translate as a sound of merrymaking. Merrymaking.
What's the difference?
What's the difference? Sound of distress and merrymaking?
So,
I mean,
They were
that's...
rejoicing. Sforno says rejoicing.
Right, no. Let's forget this one. Go back to the English. Go back to the top of 499. Verse 18.
Rashi
He said, not a sound shouting strength, not a sound shouting weakness, a sound of distress do I hear.
so they were distressed by the rejoicing.
So
No.
Moshe,
Moshe.
right, Rashi and the Sephorno say that Moshe was distressed. Rashi says he was distressed because they were worshiping an idol. And Sephorno says he was distressed because they were happy to be worshiping an idol. Okay? Ramban says, we'll read and we'll pretend we're reading the Ramban version. Not a sound of shouting strength, not a sound shouting weakness, a sound of merrymaking do I hear. Okay? The Ramban reads the word kol anos, right? That ambiguous phrase in the Hebrew, kol anos, a sound I hear. The Ramban reads it differently. The Ramban reads it as merrymaking. Okay? What does that mean? What does that mean? It's the merrymaking again. It's the rejoicing like the Sephorno. But it's merrymaking. I hear a sound of glad merrymaking, of happiness and idol worship. Litzachik. Again, the litzachik, the idol worship. Right? But the Ramban adds another piece. The Ramban quotes the Midrash in Koheles Rabbah. Okay? They're quoting from Midrash Rabbah, quoting from Koheles Rabbah, and it seems that there's also a Gemara that says a similar idea. That he says, the Ramban says that Moshe is rebuking Joshua. He's giving him rebuke. He's trying to train him. And he says to him the following line. He says, the one who is destined to become the leader of the Jewish people cannot discern between the sounds of war and the sounds of merrymaking. So the Ramban says, Moshe is teaching him a lesson here. He's saying you have to know the difference. And it's not so much what the difference is, it seems according to the Ramban. It's not so much what the difference is. Right? It's that there's a difference. Right? So they have to ask, well, great. So he doesn't know the difference. And who cares? right? If we accept the Ramban, that he's rebuking Yoshua and saying you need to know the difference between the sounds of war and the sounds of merrymaking, right? Well, everybody can tell the difference between the sounds of war, sounds of merrymaking, like Henry, right? Like Henry suggested, right? It had to be somehow facetious. He knows the difference, and certainly once they get to the base of the mountain, they'll know the difference. And when Yeshua is running the country, right, when Yeshua is the leader of the Jewish people, he's not going to need to know the difference between the sounds. He'll see, is there a war going on? Is there not a war going on? What is Moshe talking about? Right, what is this rebuke? Right, we're getting the question. Does this make sense to anybody? Why is this recorded in Chumash?
Perhaps Moshe is saying you've got to be very exact about what happened. You're going to be the leader. You have to be very sure about what's happening. Now, you can go down and see what's happening, but before you even see it, the sound should tell you.
Should trigger a little something.
Yeah.
Okay, so look carefully at the English, I guess, okay? A sound of distress do I hear? Again, even if you replace the word distress with merrymaking for the Ramban, a sound of whatever do I hear? That's Moshe's interpretation, right? It's not a statement of fact. It's a statement of perspective. Yeshua says, I hear a sound, I think it's war. Moshe says, and this is the Ramban also, Moshe says, I hear a sound, and I think it's merrymaking. Because had Moshe meant it as a definitive statement, he would have said, it is merrymaking, period. What's the do I hear? Anochi Shameh. Because my interpretation, right? Now Moshe, of course, was more in tune to it. But if he really wanted to make it a definitive statement, he could have. This is Moshe's opinion. And it's not the be-all and end-all, it's Moshe's opinion. Now yes, we generally hold Moshe's opinion in extremely high regard. But when Moshe and Yeshua are talking on their way down from the mountain, it's Moshe's opinion. Right? Not the word of God this time. Okay? So what's this all doing here? So first, what does the Kol Anos mean? What is this rebuke? What is the Ramban talking about? Why is this important? So Shimon Schwab, in his Sefer the Mayan Beis HaShoeva, asks a lot of these questions. This is where I'm getting this from. This wasn't entirely me. Okay? So he says, by the way, he brings the Ramban. The Ramban quotes the Koheles Rabbah, the Midrash on Koheles, but Rosh Shimon Schwab quotes from the Yerushalmi in the Gemara in Tanis. We know there are two Gemaras. Right? We know there's the Bavli, that's one we traditionally study, that's the one that came out of Bavel, out of Babylonia. Right? And there's the Jerusalem Talmud. Okay? So the Jerusalem Talmud in Tanis says that Moshe said to Yeshua, the one who will eventually lead the 600,000 people cannot tell the difference between one voice and another voice. And it's the same Medrash of the Ramban, he's just quoting from a different source. Tzarech Biur, it needs explanation. Mahi Atana, what is his problem? Right? What is Moshe's deal? Al she'ein lo kishron zeh lahavchin bein kol lekol, that you're hearing from so far away. Right? Moshe is upset at Yeshua and is rebuking him from this distance that he can't tell the difference between one voice and another.
He has to be intuitive. He has to have a pulse of the people. He has to know what's going on even from that far away.
I'll agree with that. They've been away for 40 days.
But
That's irrelevant.
yeah,
I would think in those circumstances, I mean, for us obviously it would be different, but in those circumstances I don't mean that he has to know what's going on because he was there. He has to be at a different level to be able to
So,
know.
I hear that, but I would say that if that were true, Yeshua was right in assuming it was a war. Not idolatry.
How could he
have ever intuited that the people would be worshiping an idol at the base of Har Sinai?
It's a question that we can't answer because they were at a different level.
Right. So it's so incomprehensible to us that sitting at the base of Mount Sinai, they're going to worship an idol. And you're telling me Yeshua should have had a pulse on the nation enough to have thought of the inconceivable?
He didn't know he was...
Right? You understand? Sandy, I understand your point that the leader needs to understand his people. I grant you that.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that they're at such a spiritual level that they hear and they know when things happen, different than our human physicality.
Okay. Listen,
It's just a stretch, that's all.
I can't argue that necessarily. I'm just not sure I'm compelled to agree with you.
Okay.
And again, and I think part of the reason I'm not is because Yeshua is really making a better guess, in my opinion at least, than Moshe is. Right? They've been away for 40 days. Right? So they've probably lost a little bit of touch with the people. They can't see what's going on. And they're at the base of Har Sinai. Why in the world would Yeshua ever have thought that they're worshiping an idol? It's so insane. It's so insane. So what he thought, I think, makes a little more sense than what Moshe thought.
Moshe's a Navi.
Now, yes, Moshe was a Navi, and Moshe did intuit. It happens to be Moshe. It happens to be Moshe was right. Right? So what I think is irrelevant because Moshe was right, not Yeshua. Right? But if we look at it, it would seem that Yeshua is making a better guess.
Assumption.
Than Moshe. It's a better assumption. It's a safer bet that there's a war going on than that the Bnei Yisrael at the foot of Har Sinai are worshiping an idol. Right? So, really, Shimon Schwab interprets slightly differently. Shimon Schwab sort of amalgamates both Rashi and the Ramban. He puts them both together. Because remember, he's using this idea of the rebuke. That's the Ramban's idea. But he reads distress also. He reads like Rashi. Read the pasuk, right? It's not a sound of shouting strength, not a sound shouting weakness. A sound of distress do I hear. And what did we say Rashi reads the distress as? Whose distress? Moshe's. And what does Shimon Schwab say? The people's distress. He reads different distress. Kol anos, Rashi thought, was Moshe's pain at seeing the Bnei Yisrael sin in such a serious way. Shimon Schwab says it was the pain of the Jewish people that Moshe felt. The distress, the sound of distress, was the people's distress. And so he reads like this. They're coming down the mountain and they hear these sounds of merrymaking. They hear this party going on, right? And Yeshua hears this, looks at this, sees this, understands this, and he says, well, that sounds like people having a good time. Hololus v'shichros, right? It's a drunken party. It's a blast. They're having a good time. And that's what Yeshua thinks is going on. And Moshe says, no. That's a party of pain. That's a bunch of people who are drowning out their sorrows because they don't know what else to do with themselves. It's not hololus v'shichros. It's tsar, v'inoi nefesh. It's deep emotional hurt. And over what? Over having lost their leader. Over having lost Moshe. Having lost their conduit to God. Because what was the Egel supposed to be? Right, according to a lot, wasn't meant to be a god. It was meant to be an intermediary. A replacement for Moshe. And even when they said, Eila Elohecha Yisrael, we can interpret the word Elohim to mean a leader, not a god. We see it by the Nevi'im, we see it by the Shoftim, by the judges. Okay, and I deliberately said Elohim, not Elokim there, because I wasn't referring to God, right? So they lost their leader. There's no direction. They're a lost generation. Now, for the first time, they're lost in the wilderness. Right? We talk about, we joke, they were lost in the wilderness for 40 years, right? Because they were wandering. No! Here, they're lost. Now, for this moment, for the very first time, they have no direction.
So
where does the merrymaking come from?
There's a party because they don't know what to do. They're so lost. They're so distraught. They're so distraught.
Partying.
They're drowning out their sorrow. Right? We know people in life that do the same thing. It's unfortunate, but people live this way sometimes. And Moshe and Yeshua come down the mountain and Yeshua says, they're sinning. It sounds like a party. And Moshe says, no. This is pain. This is a party of pain. This is not a party of rejoicing. And then he says, and you need to know the difference. You want to lead these people? You want to be a leader? You want to be a teacher? You want to be a rebbe? You want to be a good parent? You want to be a good friend, psychologist, counselor, shoulder to lean on, whatever it may be? You need to know the difference. And when it sounds like there's a party going on, you need to be able to tell whether that's hololus v'shichros, whether that's a real party, or that's deep emotional pain that's being covered up by something else. Kol anos anochi shamea, Moshe says. He rebukes him and he says, if you want to be the leader of these people, you better know the difference between the sounds of a war, an emotional struggle, between a party, between a victory, between defeat, depression, and pain. And that's what he tells him. That's the rebuke. That's what Rashab does with this pasuk. He takes it and he reads it just that much differently. Right? Puts a little bit of a different twist on it. It's got a whole nother meaning. Right? Then he adds another cute idea here in the back of his sefer. If you look, it says, Kol anos anochi shameya. Look in the Hebrew, right? This only works in the Hebrew. The English, you can't make this drasha. Kol anos anochi shameya. The sound of distress of anochi I hear. Who's the anochi? Who's the only anochi?
Moshe.
No, Moshe refers to himself. But what would the drash be? What would the homiletic here be? Hashem. Anochi. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher tzicha. Right? The I. Kol anos anochi. Moshe says, I hear the pain of Hashem. Anu shomeya. Right? It's the distress of God. It's God's distress at the people sinning that Moshe hears, that he tells to Yeshua. Right?
That's intuition. That's intuition.
That's intuition, right. To hear God's pain, that's real intuition. Right? That's serious. All right. So this is really, I think,
It's amazing.
right? This is really one of my, I heard this idea years ago. I don't remember who I heard it from. And for a long time, I couldn't remember who he had even quoted it from. And then I finally found it in the Sefer, the Mayin Beis HaShoeva, or Shimon Schwab Sefer. And it blew me away. This is really one of my favorite drashos ever. Like in Chumash, this is a fantastic idea. And it applies all over the place. Right? Think about it in your own life, right? Somebody comes to you, right? You've got a kid who's crying, right? The best example really is a baby. Right? A baby cries. And what does that mean? Sometimes it means I'm cold, sometimes it means I'm hot, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm tired, I'm cranky, I'm happy, I'm sad, I just want attention. Right? It's so often. Right? And a baby's the perfect example. Right? But a person comes to you and says, I need to talk. Right? Do they want advice, or do they just want a shoulder to lean on? Do they want to be critiqued, or do they just want to be heard out? Right? A person who's having a party, who looks like they're having a blast, right? There's a great mashal of the example, a parable is given. I think it's from the Dubna Magid. And you take a fish. It's in this little fish bowl. You take the fish out of the bowl. You put it on the table. What does the fish do? It dances. Before it dies, it dances. It flops around, and it jumps, and it bops, and it's right, and it's moving, it's wiggling. Right? It's dancing. Right? There's a guy who's having a party, and a couple seconds later, it's dead. Right? Sometimes people in life do the same thing. You go through life, you dance your way through life. It's a big party. Right? Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And unfortunately, it's true. Right? There are people who live that way. Who just, I'm going to party my way through life. I'm not going to search out greater meaning.
Live each day as if it's your last.
Right? Now, of course, you can look at that two ways. You can say, party because it's your last. But of course, as Pirkei Avos tells us, right? Repent. Do good because it's your last. Make the most of it in a religious sense because it's your last. I think this is our coin of fire again. Right? Is it spiritual or is it physical? Right? What are we doing with those opportunities? When we have these moments and we are confronted with our own challenges, when we need to cry out, when somebody is crying out to us, do we really see, as parents, as friends, as children, as siblings, as educators, whatever it may be, do we really get to the root of the problem, or do we focus on the appearance of it? Do we take Yeshua's, right? Do we take Yeshua's original position, or do we take Moshe's position? We say, I'm going to go one level deeper. The idea he's trying to teach Yeshua. And I love this idea. Okay. You'll also read about it. I apologize. You're going to read about it in this week's edition of the Toronto Torah. I wrote the PARSHA article this week, but it's an idea I love so much. I couldn't put it in one and not, say it at the shiur, but not put it in the article, or put in the article and not say it at the shiur, just in case somebody doesn't read it, or somebody doesn't watch the video. I love this idea.
Excellent.
Okay. So, this week also, So done with not that we're ever done with Tisa, but I want to move on to an idea from Parshas Parv. Yeah.
Before we get to that, is this sort of absolve the Jewish people a little bit because they were stressed and really listen carefully. I read somewhere this.
Okay.
What they did with the golden calf was not really so much idol worshipping as trying to find another way to reach Hashem.
Yeah, they were looking for an intermediary.
So can they really be faulted to the extent that we say today, oh, that's the greatest sin ever and all that? Can we really look at it that way? Even Moshe said, no, this is a people that are in distress. That's what is happening. And you said, the example that in distress people do,
So it's a good question, right? And certainly if we take the approach that they weren't trying to replace God, they were trying to replace Moshe, it sort of mitigates the crime a little bit, okay? But as much as we say that a person can serve God the way they want to, right? You need to reach God sort of on your terms, in your way, right? We know you need to do that, right? On the other hand, there are still rules. And there's still rules, there's still regulations. And there's still a Torah. And even though I may feel I can reach God without following those rules, it's not really true. So this is not what they should have done. They should have continued to wait for Moshe. They should have listened to Aaron.
Absolutely. But it mitigates a little bit their sin, doesn't it?
It definitely mitigates it a little bit. Correct. But the extent to which God punishes the Jewish people following the sin indicates how grave it was. Right? So yes, it mitigates it somewhat, but it still was the worst sin of all time.
Of course.
Right? And it still was the one we're still getting paid back for.
Yeah, but right? it's not they pulled away from Hashem. It's not they said, forget away. You see, the idol worshippers, they totally pulled away from, they didn't consider Hashem at all.
According at least to some, interpretations, they were moving away from Moshe more than they were moving away from God.
Right.
So if we're within those, yes, there is a certain mitigation here.
Okay, that's fine.
However, at the level they were at, right?
At the place they were at, more than the level.
The place, the level, the event.
Still know their intent.
Absolutely.
And so if we're still getting punished for it, then he would know the intent.
Correct.
And other nations joined their Bnei Israel into that. Egypt,
Wait a minute. Is it Moshe's fault? Why didn't he prepare them in advance? He had someone, Judith, he should have known that they would go astray.
He thought they could count.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a cheap answer, but it's really the best one.
Preparing the people in advance.
So I don't know that I would say fault, but it's a little bit of a harsh statement. But yeah, I could see this. Moshe could have done a little bit more. Yeah.
He's human though. He's human.
He was a teacher. He taught him all he could.
But as the leader,
he was at
as the leader of a people, what your people do reflects on you. It's true. Right? As much as it is a child's decision to do whatever it is they do, it is a reflection on the parent, to an extent. Right? It's not the be-all and end-all, but to an extent. And the fact that the Jewish people could have gotten to this level, even at the base of Sinai, that reflects in some way on Moshe. I think we can say that.
Did Moshe know how long he would be up in the mountain?
Moshe told them. And like Henry said, he thought they could count.
Couldn't count,
They got the count wrong. It happens we get the count wrong a lot.
Remember that.
Right? There's also, Purim. The whole Purim story is about getting the count wrong too. Right? We know that? Right? The party that Achashverosh made was to celebrate the 70 years that had passed the Nevuah. And so he knew the Beit Hamikdash was going to be rebuilt. And so he figured, fine, the Jewish people are mine forever, and that's why he wore the garments of the Kohen Gadol, and he used the kelim from the Beit Hamikdash, right? Except he couldn't count. No. He got it wrong also. He was off by a little bit.
He missed it.
Okay? So, and his,
Belshazzar 185-day party? 185-day party?
It's a long party. Okay? So that's... right, so I think we can say there's a little bit of reflection on the leader here, but again, the ultimate responsibility falls on the people. Of course. Okay, so Para Aduma. So we read, right, so this week, so PARSHA Tisa. After we read Tisa, we'll read the Maftir for the Para Aduma. So we know that leading up to Pesach, we read 4 special Parshios. We read Shkalim, which is actually the beginning of Tisa. We read that, I think, 3 weeks ago. We read Zachor this past Shabbos. We read Zachor about the mitzvah to destroy Amalek. We read that right before Purim. This weekend, this Shabbos, we're going to read Parshas Para, which is the beginning of Parshas Chukas, which I can find the page, or I guess some of you are ahead of me. You're already in the table of contents. You'll tell me where the page is.
1160.
Okay, so that's Parshas Para. That was because you need the Para Aduma in order to purify the people. Anybody who was a tamei mace, who had contracted tumah. We're not going to translate tumah. We're just going to say tumah because there is no good translation. So anybody who became tamei.
It's not 1160. It's another.
Anybody who would become tamei.
Haftarah for Kislev.
No, not the Haftarah. No, not the Haftarah. We're looking for Parshas Chukas.
It's not this one, no, Sammy. It's not this Haftarah.
All right.
It's not the Haftarah. We're not even looking at the Haftarah. We're going to look at the
I thought you
Maftir.
were. Okay, sorry.
Okay?
Oh, you're in the Maftir, huh?
Okay, Parshas Chukas, it's page 838. So then we read the Para Aduma because when somebody was tamei, they needed to become tahor. Okay, and in order to do that, you needed the ashes of the Para Aduma, and you needed to be tahor in order that you could bring the Karban Pesach. And then next week we'll read Parshas HaChodesh. That's from Bo, HaChodesh Hazalachem. That's we always read right before the beginning of the month of Nisan. Okay, so this week we're reading Parshas Para. And Para, the Para Aduma, is the thing that we know is famously referred to as a chok. And even the Parsha is called Chukas, because the Torah tells us, Zos Chukas HaTorah. This is the decree of the Torah. And it's called a chok. Why? Why? Anybody?
No explanation.
It has no explanation. We absolutely cannot make sense of this mitzvah. We can't. There's really just no good answer or explanation for it. Okay? You can't do it.
No.
So, you can't make sense of it. It's a chok. Now, it happens to be that the Gemara in Chulin gives a list of approximately 11 or 12 items that we cannot make sense of. Right? The list, I've got it here. The list is Achilas Chazir, the eating of pig, Levisha Shatnez, the wearing of garments made of two different materials, Rok Yavama, that in order to perform Chalitza, when a man dies childless, the man's brother is supposed to marry the wife, but if she doesn't want to, so then you do this yibum thing, you do the chalitza thing, and the woman has to spit, and so that whole process we don't understand. Seir Nazir, why the Nazir can't cut his hair. Tziporim Mitzorah, the birds of the Mitzorah. I'm not translating Mitzorah. It doesn't have. It's one who is afflicted with tsaras. That's the best I could do, because tsaras doesn't have a good translation either. When people say leprosy, but it's just totally wrong. Okay, tsaras. Sira Mishtaleach.
Affliction.
Okay. The Sira Mishtaleach, the kid, the goat that is sent out to the mountain and thrown down the mountain as part of the Yom Kippur Avoda. Harva'as Kilayim. Shor HaNiskal, Petr Chamor, Egla Arufa, Basa B'chalav. Right? There's
What is the translation, please? The last four you did.
The last four. Shor HaNiskal is the animal that is to be stoned. Petr Chamor, the firstborn donkey. Well, the firstborn animal that can be redeemed with the donkey by breaking the donkey's neck. Should you not give the animal to the Kohen like you're supposed to? We're not getting into this. Egla Arufa, that if you find the body laying between a city and you don't know who killed it, you bring a cow to that place and you kill that. And Basa B'chalav, the mixing of milk and meat, to eat milk and meat together. Okay? That's like 11 or 12 items. Okay? And those, all of them, we don't have an explanation for. And yet, the Para Aduma we know is a chok, and there are only 3 other times in the Torah that a mitzvah is referred to as a chok. There are only 3 other times. And what are they? And it's from this list. The other time is Yibum, the mitzvah of Yibum, that if a man shall die childless, his brother is meant to marry his widow. Okay? Shatnez and tzitzis. And that's referred to as a chok. When it says don't wear shatnez, and then in the very next pasuk it says gedilim tasalach, that you should make tzitzis, and even though tzitzis, to really do it with proper tchelas, it's going to end up being shatnez, and yet it's okay. This ir hamishtaleyach, when you take the kid out to the mountain on Yom Kippur and you toss it down the mountain, and that creates kapara, atonement for everybody except the person who did it.
Yeah.
And the para aduma, the red heifer, the red cow, that the ashes purify everybody, but the person who performs the avodah isn't purified.
That's right.
Right? It makes those who are tamei tahor, and those who are tahor, it makes them tamei. Okay? So we have to understand
Pure and impure, right?
So I don't really want to use pure and impure. I'd actually rather use tamei and tahor. Right? We generally translate as pure and impure, ritually, spiritually, I guess, but it's not a great translation, so I'd rather stick with tamei and tahor. So those are the 4 times we say chok. And what do these 4 things have in common that the rest of the list does not? These 4 things have something in common. And I think what they have in common is that they are all contradictions. They're contradictions. The Seir HaMishtalayach, it creates kapara, it creates atonement for everybody except the person who performs that service. The Para Aduma creates tahara for everybody who is tameh, but the person who does it starts out tahor and ends up tameh. Right? It's a contradiction. Shatnez and tzitzis, don't wear shatnez, wear shatnez when it's a mitzvah. That's a contradiction. And yibum is a contradiction, because we know it's usher to be with one's sister-in-law, for a man to sleep with his brother's wife. And yet, when the brother dies, it's a mitzvah. Now remember, if they have children, if the couple has children, it's an avera. It's still a lav, still an isser erva for him to, not a lav, it's giviyat rayos, for him to be with his sister-in-law. But when they don't have children, it's a mitzvah. That's a contradiction. Right? So these 4 things are contradictions. That's why they're called chukim. They are super chukim, right? They're the other things we don't understand. We can't make sense out of it. Right? Why am I not allowed to eat pig? Right? There's no good explanation for such a thing. Right?
It leads to blindness, but
okay.
They say, and meat meal doesn't assimilate properly in your stomach.
Okay, yeah, and yet there are plenty of people who don't keep kosher and they're just fine. Right?
That's not the issue.
So also you should know, by the way, when we talk about tameh ha-mitzvos, we talk about the reasons for mitzvos. Reasons is the wrong word. Purpose, I think, is a better word. It speaks to something different. Right? It's not the question of why did God do it, it's what can I do with this now that God told me to do this. Right? The question of reasons for the mitzvos is, why did God give this mitzvah? And the answer is, I don't know.
That's right.
For what purpose did God give this mitzvah? In what way can this mitzvah enrich my life? That there might be an answer to. Right? Now you should know also, by the way, chukas, right, this idea of the Para Aduma, we know it's a chuk, we know there's no answer. Right? The Sefer Minchas Chinuch, right, the Sefer Achinuch, so he writes on all the mitzvahs, he writes the halachos and the shrashim and all the different things, but he writes the tamei mitzvahs, he writes the purpose of the mitzvahs. And he starts talking about the Para Aduma and he says, there is no reason for this one. We don't know it. And then he spends about 2 pages giving reasons.
What does he say?
A whole bunch of them. Right? I don't have it all. I wish. I should have. I probably should have brought the chinuch with me. So, he tries. He throws ideas out there. And I think that speaks to a point that we're going to get to here, but that asking the question is important even if there's no answer. Right? Sometimes in life it's important to ask the question. Even if there's no answer, it's the search for the answer that's important. It's the question. It's the effort that's more important than actually getting the answer sometimes. So these 4 things are contradictions. That's why they're called chukim. But I think there's got to be something deeper. There's something deeper to these 4 things. I think they represent something. I think each of these 4 things represents something about life. Yibum. Let's start at Yibum. The mitzvah, you can't be with your wife, you can't be with your sister-in-law, it's asur, it's gilei arayos, but there are specific times when it's a mitzvah. And why is it a mitzvah? What does the pasuk continue? Lahakim zera lachicha. That when this man marries his brother's widow, they will have a child, and the child will be called by the name of his dead father. Right? That's the mitzvah. Lahakim zera lachicha. To continue your brother's line. It's a mitzvah about birth. So it's about birth, about the creation of life. And guess what? The creation of life is one of the things we don't understand. It's true, right? We don't get it. As much as we think we get it, we don't get it. No. Right? Yes, scientists explained a ton. But really, sperm and an egg comes together, 9 months later there's a baby. Right? It boggles the mind. Right? And that the body knows how to form it, and it's in the womb, and the embryonic fluid, and all the other different things. I don't even know all the terms, right? Clearly I don't have any children, right? Otherwise I'd probably know a little bit more, right? And the way the woman's body works in order to carry life and to produce life, we just don't get it, right? If science really got it, we'd be cloning humans, right? We'd be test tube, there'd be tons and tons of test tube babies out there, right? We can't make sense of this. That's what Yibum's about, right? Shatnez and tzitzis, it's about clothing. clothing, protection, shelter, health. What's good and what's not good for the body? How does the body work? How does the body continue to work? Again, as much as science has given us, and science has given us a tremendous amount, I don't want to discount that in any way whatsoever. Science has given us a tremendous amount, right? But at the end of the day, right, the way our body works is a miracle, right? There's really no denying it. It's a miracle. It's absolutely amazing, and it's beyond human comprehension. Right? So these 4 points, these 4 ideas out of the list of things that we don't understand, these 4 are called chukim, to let us know that our whole life, from beginning to end, is surrounded and is lived as a chuk. Why do things happen? Because God decreed it. Why do I have to do this and not that? Because God decreed it. Why was I born? Why do I die? Why is this one born? Why can that one have children? Why does this one suffer and that one's rich and the other one is happy and this one gets sick and that one dies prematurely and this one lives to a ripe old age? I don't know. It's a chuk. And that's what the Torah is telling us by calling specifically these 4 things. Even though there's no reason, there's no tam, there's no purpose that I can make sense of out of the other mitzvos on that list, right? But these 4 specifically that represent all the different facets of life, these 4 are called chukim to let us know that there isn't always an answer. Now that doesn't mean we shouldn't ask the question. You should. You need to ask. You need to look for purpose. You need to understand. We need to grow from the experiences. But there won't necessarily be an answer. In all likelihood there won't be. But it's the search that's important. It's that relation, it's that building, it's that looking for God in every situation that will eventually bring us closer to God. Will bring us closer, will help us rectify. We know the paraduma is an atonement for which other par? For the egel. Also a calf. The calf for the calf. Yeah. Right? It comes to be mechaper for that. Hopefully if we can learn the lessons of the paraduma, the lessons of chukim, if we can learn to live our lives the way God told us because God told us, we can also get kapara and rebuild that relationship that we lost with God. When we said, Eila Elohecha Yisrael, and we danced and we rejoiced and we caused God pain, we caused Moshe's pain, right? When we sinned with the golden calf, and hopefully we can bring that all back together.